It was the start of summer vacation, and my friends and I were buzzing with excitement. We had planned a camping trip deep in Pine Ridge Forest, a place filled with tall trees, bubbling creeks, and endless trails. I, Sam, along with my best friends Jake, Mia, and Lucas, couldn't wait to escape the boredom of our small town. Ready for an adventure? Jake grinned as he loaded his backpack into the car. "You bet," I replied, feeling a thrill of anticipation. Little did I know, this trip would be far more adventurous than any of us had imagined. We set off early, with the sun just peeking over the horizon. The drive was filled with laughter and loud music. As we got closer to Pine Ridge, the scenery changed from wide-open fields to dense, shadowy woods. By the time we arrived at the campsite, the sun was high in the sky. "This place is perfect," Mia said, looking around at the clearing surrounded by towering pine trees. We set up our tents, collected firewood, and planned our hike for the next day. The first night was magical. We roasted marshmallows, told ghost stories, and watched the stars appear one by one in the dark sky. It felt like nothing could go wrong. The next morning, we decided to explore a trail that led deeper into the forest. As we walked, the trees grew thicker, and the sounds of the forest became louder. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and the occasional crack of a twig made us jump. "Guys, look over there." Lucas pointed to a path that seemed to veer off the main trail. Hidden behind some bushes, there was a narrow path leading to what looked like an old abandoned cabin. "Let's check it out," Jake said, already heading in that direction. "I don't know," Mia hesitated. "It looks creepy." "Come on, Mia, where's your sense of adventure?" I teased, though I felt a slight unease myself. We followed the path to the cabin, which looked even more run down up close. The windows were broken, and the wood was weathered and gray. As we stepped onto the porch, the floorboards creaked under our weight. "Hello?" Lucas called out, but there was no response. We pushed the door open, and it swung back with a loud groan. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust. Old furniture lay scattered around, and cobwebs draped the corners. It looked like no one had been here for years. "This place is so cool," Jake said, snapping photos with his phone. Suddenly, Mia gasped. "Look at this," she whispered, pointing to the wall. There were strange markings, like scratches, all over the wooden panels. "What do you think made these?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Probably just animals," Jake said, though he didn't sound convinced. We continued exploring, finding more strange symbols and old tattered books filled with weird, unreadable writing. Just as we were about to leave, we heard it, a soft, eerie whisper that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my heart pounding. Everyone nodded, their faces pale. We quickly left the cabin, almost running back to our campsite. That night we couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig made us jump. The fire we had built seemed too small, its light too weak against the darkness pressing in from the forest. "Maybe we should leave tomorrow," Mia suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I think that's a good idea," I agreed, looking around at the dark trees that now seemed more menacing than ever. Despite our decision, we didn't get much sleep that night. Strange noises echoed around us, and shadows danced just beyond the fire's light. When morning finally came, we hurriedly packed up our gear. As we made our way back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. I glanced back several times, but saw nothing unusual. We drove back in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts about the strange events. Just as we were leaving the forest, Mia screamed. "Look!" she shouted, pointing to the side of the road. There, standing in the shadows, was a figure. It looked like a man, but his eyes glowed eerily in the dim light. "Drive faster!" Jake yelled, and Lucas hit the gas. When we finally reached town, we all agreed never to speak of what happened in Pine Ridge Forest. But the memory of that haunted cabin and the feeling of being watched stayed with us. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, hearing that soft whisper and seeing those glowing eyes in my mind. Our camping trip had started as a fun adventure, but it ended as a true haunted experience.